start my talk by asking you to close your eyes and focus on the sound around you. Think back to your journey to this venue. What sounds accompanied you? Maybe a song, a podcast, an audiobook? A study by Renfro and Gosling stated people believe their musical preferences revealed a substantial amount of information about their personalities and self-views. Now, as you open your eyes, I want you to question, do you agree? Are you what you listen to? How many people here have made a New Year's resolution? Yes, a lot of us. Well, a few years ago, in my cheese-filled haze, wondering what day it was and whether I was coming or going, I thought it would be a really good idea to enter the ballot for the Great North Run. A month later, I was surprised to find I did get a place to run a half marathon, 21.1 kilometers, for the person who had not run more than 10 kilometers in the past 10 years. Now, the first thing I thought was, okay, let's go. So I had a 1 kilometer route around the local park. I'd walked it many times, can't be that hard. I got kitted up, got the old running plans out, and off I went. Running, I thought I looked like the athletes in the Olympics. In reality, as I was running and I looked to my left, the first runner came past me. And that voice popped up and said, "You know you're not a runner, right?" I looked around and it's fine, I'll carry on running. So I continue running. And then I looked to my right and a parent with a pushchair comes elegantly gliding past me, not one bead of sweat. That little voice then chuckles. "You know, you are just not a runner. You should just go home." I shake my head and think, can't be. But that run has slowly turned into a fast walk, into a slow walk, into a full stop. So we go again. We pick up where we left off, another 1 kilometer route, and then we go again and again. And after several disappointing attempts to run a kilometer, I realized this might be more than a fitness problem. So I changed my strategy. I calculate how long it's actually going to take me to run a half marathon. The answer to that was 2.5 hours. I felt very silly because there was no activity I did that lasted 2.5 hours. Unless I thought of the one thing I did do, which I could do for hours on end, where I felt energized, and that would be raving. I started to build a playlist based on my love of the high PM genres, drum and bass, and jungle music. Jungle is massive. I discovered DJs, I looked at radio shows, I looked at SoundCloud, and I came across this one tune, High Time by 4 AM Crew, with melodies borrowed from Michael Jackson's Lady in My Life to that perpetual drum and bass beat that just keeps you motivated. I will never be sure if that song set my pace or I set my pace to that song, but it transformed my runs. But that little negative inner critic was still there. I mean, I'd really thought about what I listened to. As a new runner, I had the diet plan, I had the hydration levels going, I even did a food diary because I'm running 4 times a week and I must sustain myself, because everybody knows diet matters when you exercise. But the sounds, that voice, I mean, that was playing a role too. It was making it impossible, in fact, for me to run. So I thought back to where these sounds came from, and I was immediately transported to my parents' front room. being a young person, looking at the LPs neatly stacked on the shelf, the cassette tapes underneath, and music being the central role in a lot of our family time. Whether it was Motown, soul, reggae, dub, music played a central role in our family life. And as a youngster, I began my journey as a classically trained musician, playing the piano and violin. I grew up in a world where every note, lyric, and sound matters. From the harshest accent on the third note to the slightest ending of a beautiful phrase. My ability to listen and my awareness of sound was paramount as a musician. And in this cycle of perfection as a musician came the criticism. Criticism fueled me. In fact, it might have become a personality trait. I mean, am I the criticism that I heard in those early days? Can we become what we listen to? I moved through life, school life, university, as a musician. You would find me in a music megastore with the headphones on, listening to every album CD until someone kicked me off. Or you'd find me in the library taking out as many CDs as I could on my library card. If I wasn't doing that, I was taking music out that I probably shouldn't have been playing to play at home. Of course, I did practice what I was supposed to. As I moved further through my life, I became a secondary school music teacher. Now, here is a profession that can be fueled by criticism. It could be the form of an observation. Maybe it's the endless feedback cycles or the potential of that knock from Ofsted. It can be overwhelming. And in those times of overwhelm, I find myself in the school hall. Now, the school hall it's this area of nostalgia, because suddenly I'm 5 years old, sitting cross-legged on the parquet floor, listening to the wheels of the overhead projector as it's wheeled out, and the possibility of singing, "Shine, Jesus, shine, and all things bright and beautiful." There is power in our collective singing. I am reminded this even in my role. I am reinvigorated when we sing together. The power, the feelings. I get to witness children transformed from coming in from an overwhelming day to leaving with their beautiful voices singing songs of joy. When is the last time a playlist lifted you up or pulled you down? But it works both ways. Songs can bring us into Agnes, anger, self-pity, heartbreak. And sometimes we even choose to stay there. But there is power in this collective audio nostalgia. Even today, you can find it and access it almost anywhere. Whether it's festivals, day raves like Mums That Rave, or even DJ AG bringing sounds to the masses on the street. Our collective nostalgia, our collective audio nostalgia is powerful. And in my home, you will find that neatly put into our kitchen playlist. The kitchen is the center of our home, and that playlist embodies old family favorites. It takes us back to our happiest times. It reconnects us when we feel lost. As Oliver Sacks said, music evokes emotion, and emotion can bring with it memory. Have you ever heard a song and then felt compelled to reach out to someone you haven't seen or spoken to in a long time? I mean, if you are what you eat, then maybe you are what you listen to. You are what you listen to. That was the answer. That was the turning point for me. I needed something to drown out this inner critic who seemed to be walking around with a megaphone every time my feet hit the pavement. So I started an audiobook diet, understanding that since 2014, our listening habits have changed significantly with the rise of audiobooks and podcasts. I felt it was time for myself to start diving into the audiobook world. And I started with Rewire Your Mindset by Brian Keane. It made me see the best in myself, even in times of adversity, even in the uncertain times I was living in. David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me never finished. It taught me to always go further than my mind thought I could go, that actually I was limitless. Those books, they didn't just motivate me, they rewired me. In fact, they rewired me so much, I found the courage to go for an audition, which turned into me doing it turned into me leading an orchestra for none other than Netflix for a promotion in Covent Garden for Queen Charlotte of Bridgerton. And I found myself believing that anything was possible. That happened in the May, having made that New Year's resolution in the January. By August of that year, I had finally reached my goal of running 21.1 kilometers in my training runs, which meant that in September, I finally ran the Great North Run in 2 hours and 32 minutes. And I know there is more in me than just half marathons. I finished another half marathon last year, and I know there is more with the right playlist. Now, at the beginning of this talk, I asked you to think about the music or the podcast or audiobook that you listen to on the way here. Now, did you choose it or did it choose you? Are you someone who is stuck on smart shuffle, or are you the intentional idealist when it comes to thinking about what you are listening to? My audio diet changed my life. It made me into a person who truly believes there is so much more out there. And our words, they carry weight, they have importance. So, are you what you listen to? Even our ancient civilizations understood the power, the healing and therapeutic powers of sound. So, it's your turn. When you go home, create a corner of your world as your sonic sanctuary or your happiness hub. And start with maybe 2 songs that bring you joy, something to help you overcome the overwhelm of our daily lives. If you're using a podcast, maybe bookmark that part of the podcast with the words that elevate and motivate you beyond your daily life. Because there is power in our words. The question we should ask: are you what you listen to?